Get ready for Donald Trump unshackled, going after anyone who offends him. Fellow Republicans by day, Hillary Clinton by night. And he's not sparing the media less than a month before this election day. I'm sure that surprises you, right? Hello and welcome to Happening Now. I'm John Scott.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jenna Lee, and both candidates hitting battleground states today. Secretary Clinton in Colorado, Donald Trump about to hold a rally in Florida, a critical state for him where the race is very tight. We'll talk a little bit about that with a local reporter. He's already reminded one Florida crowd about his margin of victory in the primary and said he'll be very angry if he doesn't win the state in November. Our senior national correspondent John Roberts is live with the Trump campaign in Florida. John?
Good morning to you, Jenna. Being tongue-in-cheek when saying that he would be very angry if Floridians didn't vote for him because he's created so many jobs here in the Sunshine State, and he obviously has as well. He's appearing in Ocala today, Lakeland a little later on today. Marion County, which is where we are now, was won by Mitt Romney by 16 points back in 2012. Donald Trump having a rally here to try to get turnout up on November the 8th and in early voting because he seems to be heading into a deficit here in the state of Florida. Real Clear Politics average now has Hillary Clinton up by about 2.5 points. Donald Trump had been leading here. And Donald Trump and the campaign blaming the turn of fortunes, obviously what happened in the last 72 hours, but also suggesting without the support of all Republicans, it makes the path to victory that much more difficult. Taking aim at people like Paul Ryan and Senator John McCain for not being as supportive as they should be. John McCain actually withdrawing his support, saying that he wouldn't vote for Donald Trump. So now he's taking this new approach, very much like he did back in the primary campaign, where he is going to be his own man. He's not going to listen to other people in terms of being more politically correct, not going to play powder puff football, according to one campaign person that I talked to. His campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway, was asked about what the difference means this morning on Fox and Friends. Here's what she said.
He's just unencumbered now. You know, this idea that do you support us, do you not support us? I mean, we're the top he's the top of the ticket. He's the presidential nominee, and past presidential nominees have been able to rely upon much more support within the rank and file members, elected members, than he is.
On the campaign trail today, Donald Trump taking aim at Hillary Clinton and the Clinton Foundation for pursuing what he says are pay-to-play politics. A new hard-hitting ad out, also taking aim at the WikiLeaks revelations that, according to John Podesta's emails, that people who were friends of Bill Clinton who wanted to get involved in contracts to rebuild Haiti were given a fast track, whereas other people had to go through the bureaucracy. Here's what Donald Trump said about that yesterday in Panama City, Florida.
As people were dying in Haiti, Clinton insiders were separating out requests from friends of Bill or William Jefferson Clinton VIPs so that their business interests or contracts would receive very special treatment. People who were labeled not friends of Bill were placed very much on the sidelines.
And some evidence in the last few hours that some Republicans are coming back to Donald Trump. Nebraska Senator Deb Fischer saying that she is supporting Donald Trump, whereas over the weekend she had indicated that she would not because of those hot mic comments. Now, Senator Fischer denying that she ever wavered in her support for Donald Trump, but if you take a look at tweets that she sent out over the weekend, tells a different story. She said, quote, "The comments made by Mr. Trump were disgusting and totally unacceptable under any circumstance. It would be wise for him to step aside and allow Mike Pence to serve as our party's nominee." But the Trump campaign is saying that any Republicans who want to come back into the fold and support Donald Trump are welcome with their campaign. Jenna?
John Roberts live with the Trump campaign. John, thank you.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about this now, because it's not just the Republican establishment in Trump's crosshairs these days. He's laying into the news media as well. On O'Reilly last night, he insisted the amount of negative press aimed his way is unfair.
This is the all-time pile-on in history in terms of...
So my question is it coordinated? Do you believe it's coordinated?
Hey, Bill. Yeah, I do think so. Before I ran, I used to get great press. In fact, my wife said the other day, she said, "You used to never get a bad story." Well, I got some, but I got very few. Now I have, like, I can be on the front page of the New York Times in 3 different stories, and every one of them is a hit job. And you understand that. No, it's a very unfair press. But you know, I knew it would be bad. I didn't know it would be this bad. I used to talk. I said, boy, am I going to get hit, because I stand for free borders. I stand, you know, for strong borders. We have to We have to strengthen up our country. We're not going to have a country if we don't have borders, and people are pouring across. By the way, ICE and the Border Patrol guards, Border Patrol agents just endorsed me. 16,500 agents.
And a brand new poll from a traditionally red state shows Trump and Clinton in a dead heat. They're each getting 26% in Utah. Just 4 points behind is independent candidate Evan McMullin, raising the possibility of a third-party candidate actually winning the state of Utah. He has ties there, of course. Brett Baer is anchor of Special Report. We'll get to Donald Trump's war with Republicans in a minute, but first of all, I guess you're not going to lose any Republican voters if you take on the media, Brett.
No, John. The media has a lower approval rating than Congress, which stands, I think, at 18%. So there is some low-hanging fruit there. I will say that Donald Trump, in recent days and weeks, has given the media a lot to chew on. He did know going in that at some point the media overall, mainstream media, would turn on him anyway, but then he has provided a lot of oxygen for those stories. So he clearly mentions it every time he's on the campaign trail. It is something that fires up his base. They too believe that. But you know, the trick about this election now is addition, not subtraction. And who are you adding in the independents or the Democrats who are more conservative or moderate? Who are you adding in the states who are undecided? And it's a very small number. And so far, the addition is not working if you look at the polls across the country.
That brings us to his battle with other Republicans, leaders, and office holders. The Washington Post today says Donald Trump declared war with the Republican Party. Is it that bad?
Well, it is a civil war. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, we've often talked about how there is this phrase that there's a civil war within the Republican Party, but now it is playing out on Twitter and other places. I think Deb Fischer is an interesting study here in that she came out and said that she was going to pull out and say that Donald Trump should step down and Mike Pence should be the nominee. This is, again, the senator from Nebraska, and then has re-endorsed, if you will, Donald Trump. That suggests that either she's heard from constituents, she's seen some polls, or the tide has changed. And we'll see if she is the anomaly or where the party starts heading. I think most of the Republicans have kind of just stayed quiet. There's been about 30 plus who said that Donald Trump should step down, but he spent yesterday lambasting them on Twitter, the ones who did, and didn't really spend a lot of the day attacking Hillary Clinton's campaign.
That Washington Post article that I alluded to earlier carries a quote from a Trump campaign spokesman. He says, Jason Miller says, Mr. Trump's campaign has never been driven or fueled by Washington. It's always been driven by the grassroots, and it will continue to be. What we want is everyone who wants to defeat Hillary Clinton to be on board, anyone who's concerned about the direction of the country. So if he is so unconcerned about Washington, why is he then sending out tweets like these? He says, meaning Republicans, very weak and ineffective leader Paul Ryan had a bad conference call where his members went wild at his disloyalty. Obviously that reference to the call with Republican members of Congress who were wondering what to do about Trump, whether they should continue to support him or not. And then another tweet from Trump. Disloyal R's, Republicans, are far more difficult than crooked Hillary. They come at you from all sides. They don't know how to win. I will teach them. It's a most unusual presidential campaign by any standard.
Well, right. And the campaign, the head of the campaign, Steve Bannon, kind of the behind-the-scenes running it, has had it out for Paul Ryan for a long time. If you look back at his time as heading up Breitbart, he really said Paul Ryan, as Speaker of the House, is the enemy, and the establishment Republicans are the enemy. Listen, this scratches an itch for the base that says that Republicans in Washington are not getting it done. They didn't stand up to President Obama and the administration enough. And, you know, who cares if we lose the House or the Senate? That is the mentality. The problem is that in order to get things done, it's a lot easier if he won the presidency, Donald Trump, to have a Republican Senate and a Republican House to be able to get what you want to get through Congress. I mean, that is how Washington works. You got to get it through the House and the Senate. If you have a Democratic Senate and maybe even a Democratic House, it seems a little bit like a long shot still, but there are some out there who say the House is in play. It's a lot tougher if you're president to get anything through, and that is why the balance of power races are really going to be crucial and ones to watch on election night.
But it would seem that, you know, Mr. Trump would do better to train his fire at Hillary Clinton. I mean, we're going to be talking about it later in the program, his new lines of attack against Hillary Clinton, to focus all of his fire on her and the Democrats rather than, you know, shooting this circular firing squad within his own party.
Yeah, but John, I mean, we've seen he doesn't follow the playbook of a normal race. He hasn't all along from the primary until now. And this is an anti-establishment, anti-elitist kind of environment. And, you know, he's playing to that. I would be surprised if it continues into today. I think that he's going to focus more on the WikiLeaks emails and what they mean to the Clinton campaign, which, by the way, are chock full of different things. And we've been covering them here on Fox and on Special Report.
Bret Baier, thank you.
All right.
See you tonight. So for the first time ever, one of our Fox colleagues will be moderating a general election presidential debate. Award-winning journalist Chris Wallace, widely regarded as the best questioner in the business, will moderate the all-important final debate between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton. This make-or-break event, less than 3 weeks before the historic election of 2016, is to come October 19th in Las Vegas. The best place to watch the big debate, of course, right here, Fox News Channel.
A week from today, what will happen in the next week is a big question. Let's go live to Virginia, where Mike Pence is speaking at Liberty University. He's speaking a little bit about forgiveness and grace when it comes to Donald Trump, and of course that leaked video that there's been so much talk about. Let's go ahead and listen in to Vice Presidential candidate Mike Pence.
In his famous Evil Empire speech in Orlando, Florida, President Ronald Reagan actually said, in an address delivered to the National Association of Evangelicals, these words. He said, quote, "I urge you to beware the temptation of pride, the temptation of blithely declaring yourselves above it all, and label both sides equally at fault." Close quote. Let me say that to you again. President Reagan warned in his day, a warning that people of faith might do well to reflect on today, that we should beware the temptation to blithely declare ourselves above it all and label both sides equally at fault. His admonition to the people of faith to avoid the trap of inaction is as relevant today as it was then, maybe even more so. You know, we woke up this morning in the news, you might see when you get back to your dorm room, that our opponent's campaign, a campaign whose candidate actually called millions of Americans a basket of deplorables, irredeemable and not American, simply because they stand with me and my running mate and believe that we can have a stronger, more prosperous America that's grounded in our constitutional principles. And it was this morning that we learned from another...
Mike Pence speaking at Liberty University in Virginia. You can watch the entire event streaming live right now on foxnews.com.
Well, early voting numbers out of Florida pointing to an early advantage for one presidential candidate. We'll get into that. We also want to hear from you. Do you believe the U.S. is in a new Cold War with Russia? Our live chat is up and running. Go to foxnews.com/happeningnow to join the conversation.
Well, as we mentioned at the top of the show, Donald Trump is campaigning in Florida. He was there last night where he told supporters he's hoping for a repeat of the primaries.
We won by 21 points. Remember that? Everyone said, what happened? How about all of these states? You know, I went into a couple of states. Trump was 1 point down. Doesn't look like, and then we win by like 14 points. We could have this happen. We're pretty even in Florida, and I'm a little disappointed because Hillary hasn't created a job, and I've created thousands of jobs in Florida, thousands. I mean, at Doral, I have over 1,000 people working just at Doral itself. Mar-a-Lago, Trump International, many, many jobs. Buildings along the beach in Miami. No, we've created a lot of jobs. So if Florida doesn't, if you guys don't vote me as a victor, I'm going to be very angry at you.
Well, the current Real Clear Politics average shows Clinton leading Trump in Florida by nearly 3 points. Let's bring in Patricia Mazzei, political reporter for the Miami Herald. Patricia, it's nice to have you on the program. I'm just seeing some breaking news now about voter registration because of Hurricane Matthew. It looks like there's going to be an extension for voter registration in the state of Florida. Can you tell us a little bit about why that's significant?
Well, several Democratic groups had flagged the party and the Clinton campaign last week and said, hey, our voter registration drives for the last few days, when they usually see a surge of interest, got canceled because of the storm. And so by late Sunday, the Florida Democratic Party filed an emergency lawsuit asking for an extension. A judge extended the deadline for a day until today. The deadline was originally yesterday. And then today, at a hearing in Tallahassee, the judge ruled that the voting is now going to be extended until next Tuesday, saying there is no more precious right than the right to vote, and that in the areas that were hit by Matthew, people, had other things in mind, and this will give them a few extra days to sign up if they haven't already.
Do you think that'll have any impact on the race? Does that favor the Democratic Party, for example, to have voter registration extended?
Well, certainly it was the Democrats who were more interested in extending the deadline. The Clinton campaign had their campaign manager say that this was a priority because they had these drives set up to get these last-minute new voters. The Democrats have had more interest from new people who had never registered to vote in Florida before this year, and so they're trying to keep that up, and people usually, wait until the last minute.
Well, absolutely. We can all understand that. I think many of us are running behind this election season just in general with so much going on. I'm curious, Patricia, what you think of Donald Trump's assessment that we just heard there, that he saw in the primaries that the polls did not favor him, but then when you look at the end results were very different. Do you think something like that is going on in the state of Florida?
Well, the primary polls in Florida had Trump leading, and in the end he won handedly, as he noted. Right now, the polls have Clinton leading, and in 2012, at this time, they had Romney leading, and in the end, Romney ended up losing by 1 percentage point to Barack Obama. The troubling news for Trump in some of these polls compared to the 2012 exit polls is that he's trailing Romney among key demographics, not only Hispanics, but also among white voters, college-educated voters, moderate voters, in some cases by 10 percentage points, which means Trump might not have necessarily assembled the Romney coalition to try to at least tie the Democrats this year. I mean, Clinton hasn't quite assembled the Obama coalition either, but she's much closer. She's about to hit Obama's number with Hispanics, which was 60% in 2012. The last poll we saw of Florida Hispanics has her as 58%. So she is closer to reaching the Obama numbers compared to the exit polls than Trump is to Romney.
Some interesting context for us, Patricia, as we look back at some of those elections. Thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to having you back.
My pleasure.
Rolling Stone magazine files an emergency motion to delay a trial over its now debunked article about a rape on campus at Virginia, the University of Virginia, set to begin on Monday. Why the magazine says it cannot get a fair trial. Next.
Well, this just in, Rolling Stone wants to delay a defamation trial over its debunked UVA rape story set to begin on Monday. A story about that 2014 case is set to air this week on ABC, and Rolling Stone is worried they won't get a fair trial because of the added publicity. The trial centers around a now retracted story about a fraternity gang rape at the University of Virginia that was later discredited. The suit was brought by the UVA dean, who claims she was portrayed as the, quote, chief villain of the story. The article's author has been accused of having an agenda against this dean.
Breaking now, Pope Francis is calling for a ceasefire in Syria to allow the evacuations of civilians in Aleppo as Russian jets resume pounding rebel-held areas of that city. At least 25 people were killed, 5 of them children. Heart-wrenching video of the aftermath. White helmet volunteers freeing this small boy from the rubble of his home. Senior Foreign Affairs correspondent Greg Palcott joins us live with more from London. Greg.
John, just in the past hour, we've got word of yet another deadly airstrike in the Syrian city of Aleppo, a popular market there hit, probably by Russian jets. 15 killed, including women and children. This after wave of Russian and Syrian airstrikes have pummeled that city. Mostly the eastern side of the city. That's where the anti-government rebels are based, where some 275,000 people are trying simply to survive. All told, since the heavy assaults resumed following a failed ceasefire last month, 360 civilians have been killed, 100 children. Increasingly targeted, hospitals, ambulances, doctors, emergency and aid workers. It's an apparent effort, according to analysts, by the Assad government simply to empty that city. Meanwhile, as you noted at the Vatican today, Pope Francis speaking out for what he called the victims of an inhuman conflict and begged, he pleaded with the public, with the governments involved, for an immediate ceasefire. With the city mostly in ruins, efforts to restart that ceasefire really seem to be doomed. Russia blocked in the UN Security Council over the weekend efforts to achieve that again. Secretary of State Kerry has called for Russia to be held accountable for war crimes, but right now it's simply a call. Analysts say if the bombing continues at this pace, there will be basically nothing left of the city by December. And at least one analyst, John, says that could be part of the dirty plan by Syria and its allies to get the job done by then, with the Obama administration, which it feels will not get involved, just in time for the new occupant of the White House to come in there in January. Back to you.
A big job for whoever wins this race. Greg Palcott, thank you.
Well, former House Speaker Newt Gingrich pleading with Republicans to stand behind Donald Trump and offering a dire prediction for what will happen if Trump isn't elected. You'll hear from Newt Gingrich. Plus, we'll ask the question, with both campaigns using such dire language for what's at stake, how effective is that, and what does it mean for whoever takes up residence at the White House? Plus, a small plane goes down in a ball of fire. Why investigators are now looking at whether someone crashed it intentionally.
After 8 years of damage by Obama, Hillary Clinton, if she wins, will mean the end of America as we've known it. Literally. She'll bring the most corrupt administration in history into the White House, and the rule of law will become irrelevant. It'll be, as we're discovering from these WikiLeaks, it'll be the rule of friends of Bill.
I would remind a lot of the people who are deserting him now, they propped him up for a very long time. So they have to answer for that. But they also have to answer about whether they're going to stand with him when he, foments and runs a campaign of division, of bigotry, and now a race into the sewer.
Happy Wednesday, right? Former House Speaker Newt Gingrich sharing his grim view of the Hillary Clinton presidency, followed by her campaign manager, John Podesta, on who he believes should answer for Donald Trump's rise. Simon Rosenberg is a Democratic strategist and former Bill Clinton campaign advisor. Mercedes Schlapp is a former White House spokesperson for Spanish language media under President George W. Bush and a Fox News contributor. So let's just take a deep breath after all of that. The barrage of apocalyptic language in this campaign is intense. I'm sure our viewers feel it. I feel it. And quite frankly, it's a little exhausting. Simon, the question as a campaign strategist, is it helpful? Is it effective?
Well, I think it's interesting that Hillary has been very explicit in the last few days that she wants to end this campaign on an optimistic, uplifting note, that she wants to reject sort of the pessimism that we're hearing and to try to, change the tenor of the debate.
But her campaign manager said that.
I know. But if you look yesterday, she did 2 big rallies, lots of energy. She's with young people. So they are aware of this, right? And they know that a negative tone hurts turnout, it hurts Democrats. They're trying to change the tone of the election. I think she's going to be successful in these final weeks.
Mercedes, what do you think?
Well, I think Hillary Clinton is, quite frankly, a hypocrite. When you look at what her campaign came out with, talking about Catholics, calling their beliefs backwards. So she says one thing publicly, and then privately it's another situation. So she says we'll let in the Syrian refugees with a dramatic increase of those numbers, but yet in the private she says, well, it's kind of very difficult to vet. She basically talks about and criticizes Wall Street in public, yet in private she basically says, I'm with you and I need your donation.
From a campaign strategy point of of you, though. You hear Newt Gingrich, who has been vocally supporting Donald Trump and has been encouraging Republicans to get out, when he says America will be over as we know it if Hillary Clinton is president. Mercedes, do you think that's correct, number one? Number two, is it helpful? Is that going to actually get people motivated and inspired to vote?
Look, I'm going to say it's a dark period in our political history right now in this cycle. I think that what's challenging is that there is this major concern with the Hillary Clinton presidency. This means more of the same of Barack Obama's failed policies. It's more of the same of how are you going to deal with a failed Obamacare, where labor participation rate remains very low, where individuals still feel that there is income inequality has gotten worse under his presidency, and it would be the same old playbook that Obama has done for the past 8 years. So I think that that's where Newt Gingrich is basically saying, look, do we want to go with the Democratic agenda, with the Hillary Clinton agenda, or do we need to change course for America to really promote economic growth, ensure national security, and ensure that our communities are safe?
Sure, but we're not electing a king. We're not electing a queen. We're electing a president, and there is a balance of power, and there is the next chapter for whoever does move into the White House, Simon. Tom Friedman in the New York Times writes this: how can anything good come from a campaign, he was speaking of both, where the entertainment is increasingly X-rated and where the winner will be so morally injured? I mean, we're going to have to deal with whoever's elected and how they operate when it comes to the government. So are we all setting ourselves up for something much worse than it would be because we're so negative, speaking about the other candidate?
Jenna, these are great questions, and we're not going to resolve this on this show today. But I do want to say, I want to respond to something Mercedes said. Barack Obama has been a successful president. The unemployment rate is down. The deficit is down. Incomes have gone up, right? This portrayal by Republicans, including Mercedes, that the economy is worse today than when he took office is just simply false. We've had 2 consecutive Democratic presidents that have done a good job at managing the economy. When she was in the White House and the previous Bush, things got worse. And so I do think that things are not as bad as people say they are. If you look at polling right now, Barack Obama's at 55% approval rating. 53% of Americans said the economy is good in the latest CNN poll. In the latest Gallup poll, 62% of Americans say things are getting better. Yes, there are people who are upset about what's going on, but the majority of Americans are happy with where things are going in the United States. They're happy with their own economic conditions. We are not as in dire straits as many people have said during this campaign.
Mercedes will give you a chance to respond to that.
Well, I think you look at the economy, and it is sluggish. I mean, we're looking at maybe a 2% GDP growth. That's basically where we have been. Yeah. I think when you look at those Americans who feel that they have been left behind in an Obama economy, where they can't get a full-time job, they're getting a part-time job. So, yes, I think that you could say that it's, like Obama said, it's a good time to live in America for some, but not for all. And I think that you do need what the plan is to have an economic growth plan where it would benefit all Americans. And I think that that's where there is this difference between whether you go with more regulation, more taxes versus less regulation, less taxes. And that's where you have the 2 separate agendas from 2 very different candidates who at this point, unfortunately, all we keep focusing on is on both of their moral deficiencies.
Well, and the next several hours, and what's the next thing? And I'm curious about, well, what does the next year look like for us? Yeah. And how are we setting up the country for the next big questions that we're going to be tackling? You're right, Simon, we're not going to solve it during this segment. But we can attempt it little by little.
Have us back, Jenna. Have us back.
I got to keep trying, guys. Mercedes, Simon, great to have you both. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Jenna.
There
is a lot to debate. That's true. And the third and final presidential debate is something we're all going to be watching. Our very own Fox News Sunday anchor Chris Wallace is going to be moderating. It's the first time a Fox News journalist has moderated a general election presidential debate, and Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump will face off a week from today in Las Vegas. And of course, that will be the final debate before voting day. So tune in a week from today at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here on the Fox News channel.
Well, breaking now, the FBI is investigating the crash of a light plane in Connecticut. A survivor reportedly told authorities it was no accident. Now, a focus of the investigation is on the other person on board, a student pilot who died in the crash. Rob Schmidt is live near the scene in East Hartford, Connecticut, with this very strange story. Rob?
Yeah, very strange, John. And we just had a press conference, and basically no new information was given. They're keeping everything very close to the chest, and that, I think, makes us even more curious. And we can be frank here, the reason that this is getting a lot of attention right now, not because it's a small plane crash, because this possibly could have been terror-related. This is Main Street in East Hartford, Connecticut. The scene is right behind me, maybe 150 yards down. There's a power pole. There's a bit of plane wreckage. Depending on how good our zoom in, you might be able to see it back there behind me. This is a small twin-engine plane crash from yesterday, getting attention from the FBI, and that is what is so interesting here. Reports now saying the pilot who actually survived this crash is telling the FBI that this was no accident, saying that we believe that the student that he was with in the plane may have tried to take this plane down. There were two people on board, that pilot and the student. The pilot did survive. He had burns. He was taken to the hospital in critical condition. The student was killed. Reports saying that it was 28-year-old Faris Freytek is the name, and he is from the nation of Jordan in the Middle East. He was a student on that plane. FAA says he was licensed to fly a small plane. And the crash, what is so interesting here, it was curiously close to Pratt & Whitney's main United States headquarters, which was maybe 200 yards away from where this plane went down. That's interesting because Pratt & Whitney makes airplane engines, and they're also a defense contractor. They make engines for a lot of the jets that we fly during war. So you start to see what the possibility of maybe a motive could have been in all this, and of course none of this is confirmed. We don't have any of this, confirmed, but you start to see why the FBI is here because of the close proximity to Pratt & Whitney and everything else. Now this plane also almost hit a van when it came down. The video is amazing when you see this happen in the middle of the afternoon yesterday. A mother and a small child in that van reportedly taken to the hospital just because they were so shaken up by it, but not injured, not hit by the plane. Pratt & Whitney did release a quote, a statement here that we're going to read you now. Pratt & Whitney is assisting authorities as needed. We are unable to comment further since this is an active investigation. We refer you to the appropriate authorities for additional information. But right now, the FBI still has not given us anything, any information at all. We just got something from Hartford Police, and they basically didn't say anything. So this is being a very tightly wound investigation. They don't want to give a lot of information out, which in my experience with reporting means that there might really be something here that they don't want to just dump on the media yet. They want to make sure they got everything, all their T's crossed and their I's dotted and all that stuff like that. We'll send it back to you guys.
Given the impact and the fire, it's amazing that anyone survived. Rob Schmidt.
That's
Rob,
right.
Thank you.
More on that story as we get it. In the meantime, new information about this YouTube video we showed you yesterday of a tied-up girl and the 2009 disappearance of Kayla Berg. Police now say they know who this man is. Why that matters next.
Some new information on a story we first brought you yesterday on Happening Now. Police in Wisconsin now say a disturbing YouTube video that was just taken down yesterday of a girl tied up and screaming, apparently locked up in a basement, is not linked to the 2009 disappearance of a Wisconsin girl named Kayla Berg. Officials say the guy in the video has been identified along with the actress, the girl, and they say the whole thing was staged. The question now is, where do we go from here? Eric Guster is a criminal defense attorney. Doug Burns is also a criminal defense attorney and a former prosecutor. For those who didn't see our program yesterday, the guy in that video whose face we just showed puts out this creepy video saying he's got a new girlfriend, just met her at the mall. Then he cuts to a shot where he throws open a locked basement door. There's a girl bound and gagged on the floor. She screams, "What are you doing?" The door closes, and that was the end of the clip. So we spoke to the police chief in Antigo, Wisconsin yesterday, where they are still investigating the disappearance of Kayla Berg some 7 years ago. The chief and his force and other forces, possibly the FBI, have tracked this guy down. They say he is not involved. It was all just an act. Could he face charges, Eric?
If stupid was a crime, he'd be facing a felony, but it's not. This is a case where there were actors involved in this, and it is not a crime, unfortunately, because I know that the family really wants to prosecute this man because this gave them hope that they have someone who is responsible for their baby's kidnapping and possible death, but we don't know. Death has not been confirmed.
The mother thought it was her daughter. Right. She saw the video, thought it was her, thought it was her voice.
Yeah, to Eric's point, I agree. I mean, the way you would break it down legally is you'd say as long as the people are consenting, the actor or whoever is involved, then it's not necessarily a crime. However, I would part company a little bit slightly and say that if you could could show that there was some link between that and the horrific disappearance, or even some intent, I'm not suggesting necessarily that there is, then maybe, but I do tend to agree with Eric. I don't think you could actually prosecute him.
Now, what could happen in this, if they intended to throw the police off and act like this is the girl, they could be sued civilly for the police investigations, for their time, overtime, all that. I've seen cases where that has happened, where they could be responsible for all the payments that the police had to make in reference to investigating the video.
This guy whose face was so featured in the video, I mean, the video was up for 7 years. Nobody paid it any attention until over the weekend, a sort of an amateur internet sleuth stumbled across it, put 2 and 2 together, said, hey, maybe this is the guy, and maybe that's Caleb Berg tied up on the floor in there.
I'm sorry.
Well, that guy has been getting death threats. He does not want his name out there because he put this thing on YouTube for the whole world to see, and now he's getting death threats.
What was really horrific is that the mother said, hey, that definitely sounds like her. Other friends said, look, I've been with her 1,000 times. It sounds exactly like her. And back to Eric's other point about civil litigation, you could turn around and say that's tremendous emotional distress, no?
Yeah, you could. And especially if they were trying to do it. This is where people need to stop doing stupid stuff.
Right.
You were trying to invoke emotional distress, trying to say, hey, this is actually a girl, I have her tied up. And that's the kind of thing that can end you up in court. And this guy should not, we hope no one hurts him, but this kind of thing that leads to death threats.
There was also another gentleman who lives in the area where this crime took place, and people looked at this video and said, oh, that's so-and-so. And that guy was getting all kinds of harassment. Police said, no, he had nothing to do with it. He isn't even the guy in the video, but he looks like the guy in the video. So you have to be careful with some of these social media crazes.
Well, I was going to say, and we talked about this, I mean, you know, social media's got lots of positives. Of course, this is one area where it can be very, very negative. You get this horrific video, people speculating all over the place. It's terrible.
Name the wrong person, the person gets beaten up or killed. And it's happened in videos where people have misidentified someone. They'll say, this is definitely the person, and then they will get severely injured.
Eyewitness testimony is sometimes the least reliable.
The least reliable.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Well,
sure.
Unfortunately, there is still no clue as to what happened to Caleb Berg. Her family is still looking for that girl, and let's hope they get some answers.
Yeah.
Eric and Doug, thanks very much.
My pleasure, Jack.
Thank you.
Well, an incumbent senator fighting for his political life in a race that could tip the balance of power on Capitol Hill. We'll explain next.
Sandra and Harris will be along in a few minutes with the rest of the outnumbered crew. What do you have?
Hello, John Scott. Well, we are awaiting Donald Trump to speak in the battleground state of Florida. This, of course, amid tensions with Mr. Trump and the Republican establishment, as well as his new strategy to dampen Democratic turnout. Is it a good one? We'll discuss.
And those leaked emails are apparently showing a current Clinton campaign staffer mocking Catholics and evangelicals. Could it hurt the Democratic candidate with the Christian voters?
Plus, what would the electoral map look like if only men voted, or if only women voted? We'll show you and ask why and what it means for Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump.
All that plus our hashtag one lucky guy outnumbered at the top of the hour, so we'll see you in just a few minutes.
That is going to be a fascinating segment. We'll be watching.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Well, it was supposed to be an easy Senate race for Republicans, but now Missouri incumbent Roy Blunt is fighting to keep his seat in what's become a heated contest that could tip the balance of power on Capitol Hill. Matt Finn is live in Chicago with more on this race. Matt?
Good morning, Jenna. Yeah, Missouri's Republican Senator Roy Blunt under extreme pressure by the Republican Party to get reelected in just a few weeks so that the party can keep its majority in the Senate. The Democratic Party needs to pick up 5 seats in November to gain control of the Senate, and now that party is spending millions of dollars in Missouri. The Show Me State's Senate race was initially considered a second-tier race that favored the Republican candidate, Senator Blunt. But now, in the final weeks, analysts and polls indicate the state is a toss-up. Blunt's opponent, Democrat Jason Kander, describes himself as the fresh-faced Washington outsider who can beat his opponent, the career politician.
Senator Blunt wakes up every day thinking about what he can do for special interests that day, and I'm a veteran of the war in Afghanistan who has demonstrated the ability to work to get things done.
My opponent's a guy who's run for 3 offices now in 7 years. He's clearly focused much more on getting the job than he is on doing the job.